Alan was good. All right, so I'm not going to take up too much time on the shout outs because I am going to run this as a video on my channel as well for people who can't catch the stream. But let's go ahead and get into it. I loaded up a beat, and it's one that I did on a live stream, and I thought it would be a good example. I was kind of caught because I kind of wanted to do some boom bap stuff and mix that, but all the stuff that I had that wasn't already mixed was really simple, and it didn't really have any I guess problems that can creep up. You know what I mean? So I wanted to have a beat that had some problems that we can solve on the fly, you know, using standalone. So this one it's a trap beat, and don't judge me initially because I left it as ugly as possible. Usually when you're creating, you're not thinking about the mix, and I actually took some effects off that I used when I was creating it, just so it would sound extra raw. So let's go ahead and get into it. I'll go ahead and play the beat now. All right, so very simple like trap style beat. And actually, if I set it the way it was set initially, the bass was actually louder. Yeah, I think the bass is up there. So all right, so as you can hear, very ugly sounding beat right now. It's not really, I mean, obviously it has like a lot of the trap issues that you know people have with mixing. Really loud hi-hats, sometimes an annoying 808 bass line. And usually what I do when I'm mixing trap beats is kind of try to make it as pleasing to the ear as possible. Like I said, I'm kind of like an old head boom bap type dude, and I like kind of rational levels on stuff, right? I don't like my hi-hats too high. I don't like my my bass lines too high. I want everything to kind of be in its own pocket, all right? So let's go ahead and approach this how I would approach it. All right, so first off, what I like to do is I like to get into mixing my drums, getting the levels right. But before I work on the levels, I'll go ahead and start working on my effects because I like my drums to sound cohesive. So sometimes if you have sounds from different kits and things like that, they sound really dry. So what I'll do is I'll start working on a couple reverb channels. So let's go ahead to our channel mixer. All right, and we're gonna go to our returns. All right, and we got 4 returns here, and I usually don't use all 4. I usually use a reverb on 1, a reverb on 3, which is, I'll show you, it's going to be a longer reverb. And then 2 I'll leave open if I want to do like delays or something like that. And then 4 is like, if I'll throw like a chorus effect or something like that on there. So this is just something, the typical filters that I'll use, or the typical effects I'll use, but you know, it's always open to interpretation. So let's go ahead and set the first one. I just basically tapped on the first square here in returns. Now again, to get to this, hit your channel mixer, go up to the top here, and it'll be default on program. So we're going to take it to returns. All right, tap the first one, and then we're going to hit this insert over here on the left, and go ahead and add a reverb. So I'm doing this on the touch, but I'm only going to use standalone, you know, included plugins. So I don't want anyone to get confused if you see like somewhere on the screen you see like VSTs. That's not available in standalone. That's just, I'm using the touch for demonstration purposes. All right, so let's go ahead to, I'm going to put a spring reverb on 1. All right, and when you're putting these effects on the channel sends, you're going to bring the mix all the way up because it's not affecting a sound directly. We're going to dial in how much of this effect we want to affect each, you know, particular drum sound. So this reverb send is going to be on 100%, and that's how all of them are going to be. And I think 4 seconds is pretty good. Maybe we'll turn the pre-delay up just a little bit. And we'll adjust this later if we need to. All right, and then on on 2, I'm gonna go ahead and put a longer reverb. All right, and just tap the second one, tap over to the left once again, and let's go with, yeah, we'll go with air reverb. All right, and they have a preset that I like to use called vintage. You just basically tap up here in your presets at the top. All right, and I'll start with vintage, and then I'll usually bring up the time. So this is gonna be a longer reverb for kind of creating more space and ambiance usually with melodies is where I use it, but on occasion I'll use it with certain drums. All right, so pre-delay, I'm not gonna mess with that too much. And then we'll go output width. I'll make that a little wider. All right, and this is all stuff we can adjust later as well. But this is just kind of like my starting point. All right, so we'll leave it at that. So I usually go in, have my, effects returns, started there. And if we have to come back to it, we will. All right, so let's get back to programs. All right, and actually, you know what? We'll go to the pad mixer. Now you have to go to your drum tracks. Let me turn those on. And we're gonna start mixing the drums first. All right, and I have my drums on this one on, looks like 1 through 4, yeah. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just name these so you're not confused. All right, we're gonna call this one. It's not much of a melody, but that's what we'll call it. All right, and then track 6 is melody 2. All right, track 1, we're gonna put open hats. And usually what I'll do with trap beats is I'll separate, I'll do 2 type of hats. I'll do one that's kind of like maybe like an 8th note or something close to it. And then I'll do another one with more like rapid hats that I'll switch out to for certain parts of the beat. So track 2 is snare. 3 is kick. And 4, we're gonna do, we'll call it trap hats. And this is gonna be the faster paced hi-hats. All right, boom. So we're set there. And what I did was I went to track mute. I muted out everything except for the drums, and we have this. All right, so this is going to be your default view for new guys who don't know. This is going to be your default view. So when you're playing it, you can't really see the levels until you tap the eyeball here. All right, and it's normally going to be on the program level. What you could do is like a quick shortcut is, just tap the squares up here if you want to see individual sounds. But we're going to go to the pad mixer. And we'll see which drums are hitting, all right? I'm gonna go ahead and take out the rapid hats and we'll just work with these ones to start. All right, so we've got our kick there, snare there. Looks like this is a percussion. Open hat. And kind of like I guess you can call it a closed hat. And that looks, yeah, it's a little percussion right there. All right, cool. So at this point, I've already turned the kick down a little bit. As you can see, it's in the red. It's already kind of clipping. Well, it's not. The thing about the MPCs is it doesn't really clip. It's like a soft clip once you're in the red. So it'll make you think you're safe, but you'll see when we get to our master track, you definitely want that to come down. But for now, that's pretty loud. So let's go ahead and bring that down. Now, the deceptive thing about the MPC, right, is you'll see those red lines on the meter, right? And you'll think, okay, my kick's still hitting. I keep turning it down and it's still hitting. Well, that's just, it's like a reminder of where it was. And I wish it kind of went down after a certain amount of time, but you actually have to double tap those red meters. And then you'll see the real level. All right. And those lines just kind of show you, you know, they'll just stay up there and show you where the highest point that kick hit. All right, so we're below 0 with it. We'll go ahead and leave it there for now. All right, went ahead and tapped the snare. Looks like the snare's peaking just a little bit. Bring that down just a little. Now, another thing about standalone that some people don't know about is it's got these bigger increments when you turn the dial, right? You see it goes down by a full decibel. You can hold shift and, you know, do it by percentage decimal. So if you need more fine adjustments, just hold shift and you know, you can kind of get more precise with it. All right, I think the percussion's at a decent level. All right, and the open hat's just a little high for my taste, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring that down some. All right, so let's start giving some life to these drums. Kind of got the levels a little better. Now let's go to send down here, the bottom tab here. All right, and this is gonna basically determine how much of this sound goes over to those returns that we set up earlier, the reverbs, right? So let's start with the snare. That's my favorite thing to add reverb to. All right, and we're just gonna start cranking up the reverb. All right, that's not bad, and we can adjust that later. All right, usually the kick, I don't really put reverb on the kick. Maybe if I do, it'll be very minor, like something like that. Really, really little bit of reverb on the kick for me. All right, and then our percussion sound. Add a little bit of air to that. And a lot of this is like season to taste, but it's easy to get carried away with reverb and putting too much on it. And then you end up with this kind of like mushy, you know, drum sound. So I try to add just little sprinkles of it. This is actually way more than I normally would add to a snare. I usually keep it in the late 20s. So we'll rock out with that. All right, and then I'll also put just little bits of reverb on my hats. Can't really hear it that much on that one. Or it could be these headphones. I don't know. That's another thing. I typically don't mix in headphones, so that's kind of why I hesitated on this video. I like to mix on my monitors whenever possible. And then usually I'll double check kind of like bass notes on the headphones because you can hear bass notes more clean. And just kind of, I just use headphones as like a final mix, like as far as just to make sure once I'm done mixing, there's nothing that really sticks out in the headphones. But I normally don't trust my headphone mixes, so this is tricky even for me. I definitely recommend mixing with monitors if you have the opportunity. But if you have like a really bad room with a lot of echo, you might be stuck with the headphones. All right, and then we got this really sharp hi-hat, and that should be good. All right, so let's see what that sounds like. Might dial down the snare just a little bit. And definitely the kick. I don't know if you can hear it on the speakers, but that reverb on the kick shows up really quick. I'll dial that down. All right, cool. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit my levels again. I'm gonna bring the snare up just a little more. All right, cool. I'm good with that. All right, so now that we got the drums kind of smacking, and again, we can go back and adjust that, but I just like to put like a little bit of a reverb mix to kind of make the drums more cohesive. All right, and let's go ahead to our channel mixer. And actually, let's go ahead and mute out those drums for now. Let me add that fourth hi-hat and see what that sounds like. All right, so the rapid hats for me, it's different preferences. Some people like to have really loud hi-hats in their trap beats. I've always been of the thought that like hi-hats should kind of move the rhythm of the track and kind of give the rapper or the artist like a cadence to go with. But typically they don't need it that loud. You don't really want it, conflicting with the vocals. So I'll typically turn the hi-hats down less than some people I hear on the radio. But in my opinion, it just sounds better. I usually like the kick and snare to really drive the beat. All right, so got the drums situated for now. I'm not going to mess around with the melody too much. Let's go ahead and mess with the bass line. Now, this is a really ugly, dirty, distorted 808. Now, this particular 808 is from a key group. So I keep that on track 8. Actually, let me name that while we're at it. All right, and 808s I treat a little bit different, and bass lines I'll treat a little bit different. I don't typically like fully EQ them. I'll go to program edit if I have a key group like this, and then I'll go to my filter up here. This particular key group is just, there's one key group. Sometimes you might have to hit all up here, but there's only one, so I'll turn it to all just for good practice. But this is just one sound mapped out across the entire keyboard. Sometimes with key groups, you have different, you have smaller key groups of sections. All right. So with this, my typical filter I'll have on here is the MPC filter because it reminds me of the one I had on the 2000, the MPC 2000 Classic. And I think it's kind of close to like a vintage MPC filter, just like the curve of it. And I'll just basically start dialing that back. And it's a low pass filter in case you didn't know. So you could use one of the low settings on here as well. But I like the MPC one. All right, let's see what this sounds like with the drums. Now, I typically I only like the 808 to be a little bit audible on like headphones and phones and things like that. I don't really want it competing in those mid-range frequencies with the melody. So I'll usually dial this pretty far down, and then later in the mix, I'll bring it up if I have to. All right, I'm gonna go to the channel mixer. Let's see what that looks like. Actually, we'll just go here. Hit the program, double tap that red to see where we're at. All right, that looks like it's not too loud. It's kind of out of the way. And that's the thing, the trickiest part about mixing on the MPC. You don't have a whole lot of visual references. For instance, there's not, if you go to this mixer screen, you're getting these little baby filters on. I mean, little baby VU meters on there. You know what I mean? Like typically in a DAW, you're looking at the meters, spread across the screen. They're bigger. You're able to really get some visual feedback. On top of that, one of the weaknesses with standalone MPC is at this time, there's not any like spectrum analyzer, which, you know, a typical EQ, you're going to be able to see, like in a DAW, you'll be able to see where the, you know, where the frequencies are hitting, and you can kind of use that as a visual reference to know which frequencies you need to pull down. So mixing in the MPC is definitely more tricky because you're only relying on your ears for the most part. Definitely on the frequency level, but even on a level, even on just adjusting levels, you don't have a good way of comparing them. You know what I mean? So that's the trickiest part about it, and that's why it's really hard for me to recommend doing this, because if you can't see the meters next to each other, it's like flying blind. It's the best way I can explain it. Which you can get it done, but you're relying on your ears, and ears take a long time to develop. So, all right, I don't want to get too long-winded on that. Let's start bringing in this melody. All right, so already sounds a lot better. So let's go ahead and solo it out, and I'm gonna turn it up a little bit on my headphones. Now, I hear with this, it has like a low mid-range, almost to the bass frequencies. There's kind of like a clashing low mid-range frequency to it. And it sounds muddy. So I'm going to go ahead and work on that. Now, this is one of the problems that I ran into, which one of the reasons why I wanted to use this beat is this is actually a patch from my man So 100 and one of his key groups. And, you know, depending on the chords you play with the synthesizer, especially one that's kind of like modulated and moving around the way this one is, you can get these frequency clashes. And kind of like these muddy spots with any like synthesizer that has, you know, a low mid range. So I thought this presented a good challenge because he's got all these effects here that he uses to make the key groups. So it fills up your entire effect slot. So you're not really able to do a whole lot of manipulation, right? So this is for, you know, new guys that don't know how to use submixes. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to do that. So being that your effect slots are full, and if you take any of these out of the sound, it really takes away from what the patch is, right? And it's this kind of like dope combination of effects he's put on there that gives that sound its kind of creepiness, right? All right, so what we're going to do is create a submix, and the submix is going to allow us to send this channel over to it and give us 4 more effect slots, all right? So let's go ahead and actually, I'm trying to think what's the best way to do this. Out 1 or 2. All right, let me go to. All right, yeah, you go up. All right, yeah, I was trying to see if it was better to show you on another screen, but all right, we're gonna do it on this screen. And basically, once again, if you don't see this, if you're a new guy and you're just kind of getting used to the MPC, this is gonna be your default screen. Hit this little eyeball on the top left, and that's gonna bring up your little mixer for that particular track. All right, so we're gonna tap our out 1 and 2 right here. All right, click that, and we're gonna scroll up. And then you'll see subs. Those are your submixes. So you have 8 submixes that you can use if you run out of effects. All right, so we'll send this to sub 1. All right, and now it takes all these 4 effects that are on here and it sends the whole signal over to our submix. All right, so now we'll go to our submix, menu, channel mixer. All right, up here in the top, submixes. All right, so now you'll see submix 1 down here. You'll see the audio levels coming up. So you can send multiple tracks to one submix. That's not what we're going to do here. I'm just showing you, you know, basically how to get more effects for your sound if you need to. All right. So what I want to do on this submix channel is I want to add, let's see, let's do, one of my favorite filters is the kill EQ because I think it's really quick to take frequencies out. But it's only got a 3-band graphic equalizer. So we're gonna try something else. We'll go for kind of want to use this air parametric. You know what? I'm not. I'm going to use the old parametric equalizer, which I think is a little better. PEQ 4-band. All right, and this is the this has been around for a long time before the air effects came in. All right, so this is going to allow us. It's kind of already set, and we're just going to dial down that low mid. And let's bring down the lows as well. Oh, you know what? It's reversed. I'm wondering why the highs are coming down. I was thinking it was top down, high to low frequency, but it's a little backwards. All right, and that took out some of that muddiness in the low mid range. Let's dial it in a little more. Now I'm turning it all the way up. I'm turning it all the way up so I can really hear which frequency it's on. And again, this EQing is a lot more difficult because you don't have that visual representation you would in a DAW. In a DAW, you can just literally see the frequency you want to get rid of and drag it down. So this is not the frequency I'm looking for. Kind of like right in there. Like right around that area. All right. All right, not bad. All right, that's cool. Let's see what it sounds like. And I'm gonna mute my mic so I can just reference it on my monitors real quick. Wow, it's crazy how different headphone mixes are from monitor mixes. So one thing I noticed is the reverb is a lot less noticeable when you don't have headphones on. So that's another thing when you're mixing in headphones, you'll tend to undercompensate sometimes with reverb and kind of creating space because you can hear the reverb and stuff so much more in headphones. So that's something to compensate for. But I kind of like where it's going. But that kind of, this part of the melody we've been working on, I do want to adjust the reverb on it and maybe make it a little bigger. Now, instead of doing it here, I'm going to go ahead and take that out real quick. And basically we'll go to the channel mixer. All right, our Submix one. And we're going to go ahead and go to sends. All right. And we're going to tap send 2 more times to go to send. Actually, 1 more time to go to send 2. And send 2 is the send that we have the longer reverb on. All right, so let's go ahead and dial that in and see what that sounds like. little more space on it, right? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and actually adjust that reverb now that we're working on it. Now again, this is a really basic reverb that comes on here. Once you start messing around in a DAW and you get used to kind of having more lush reverbs, sometimes it's hard to go to these. But again, this is about kind of mixing in a jam, and that's not too bad of a sound, you know, to have in a jam. All right, so last thing we're gonna work on here, as far as the melody, is the second part, which is once again, you can see, you know, Song 100, the way he designs his kits, you got all these effects in here, and you really don't need to add much more to it. So you can just kind of adjust them if you need to. Let's hit the pencil on the reverb. And let's bring the time up a little bit. Now, one thing I can hear in these headphones is the reverb sounds like a little heavy on the low end. So let's go ahead and cut the low frequency a little bit. All right, and I think last thing I'm gonna do before we get to the master track is add a little more reverb back to these drums. All right, I think that's cool. All right, and I think the bass can come down just a little bit. And again, don't judge me too much on this, guys, because I'm not used to mixing in headphones. I'm kind of winging it. But I think that the main key when you're doing something like this is just to kind of get it to a point where it's good enough to do like a 2-track for an artist to go in and lay it down. You just don't want your beat to be muddy, and you kind of want to clean it up. All right, so we're going to change this back to programs. And I'll bring the bass down just a little bit. And I'm gonna mute up real quick and just listen to it on my my monitors. All right, thing that's sticking out to me is the kick. Still really loud. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Like in the headphones, stuff kind of pops out more, so it's tricking me a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to get too bogged down in that. What I want to tackle now is basically the master level. All right. So to get to your master level on any track, you know, you can basically go to the track down here, select it, and then, like I said, it's normally on program. You can make it your pad mixer where, you know, it changes. You can make your adjustments to the pads here. But if you hit this crown, it'll take you to your master level. So let's double tap the red lines here, get rid of those, and let's see where our master level's at. Good, looks like we're not going over 0. And that's gonna leave us a little bit of headroom for adding kind of like the final touches. So people ask me, can you like master in the MPC standalone? And that's a super stretch because you don't, again, you don't have a spectrum analyzer, but you can kind of max out your levels just by using the maximizer. So, once again, you hit that crown up there, I'll take you to your master outputs, hit your inserts, and I always put the maximizer on the last one because if I want to add, channel strip or add any type of effects, it just leaves me room. And the tricky thing again about mixing in standalone is you can't adjust the order of these effects once you put them in. So that's why I recommend keeping it simple on your effects chains, because if not, you're going to have to delete them and it's a pain in the ass. So once again, put the maximizer on 4, and that's going to make sure whatever, we have space in 1 through 3 if we want to add other effects on the master track. All right, so we're going to go to Dynamics, Air Maximizer, hit the pencil. All right, and what I do is I just bring the threshold in the ceiling all the way up. And that's going to just kind of max you out at 0 dB. So that's going to let you, run the beat as loud as you want, and it's never going to go over, over 0 dB. So you'll never clip, but if you run it too loud, it's going to sound pretty stank. So let's see what this sounds like right here. One more time, I'm going to mute up and listen to it on my monitors. All right, so the thing that I noticed once I threw that on is, once again, the kick and the 808 are just really, really punching. So some people will choose to put that maximizer on the final output from the beginning and just mix into it. That's not a bad idea. But in this case, let's go ahead and make some adjustments because that kick is definitely punching too much. And the bass line is a little bit loud. Now I got it on 0 dB just as like, just to make sure it's not clipping, but depending on what you're mixing for, you might want to turn this ceiling down, to -3. Sometimes some video programs or whatever, or, if you're submitting it for like some video stuff, they need it at a max of -3 dB. So that just gives you, an adjustment on how high you want the ceiling to be for that limiter. right, and I think the last thing, I'm just gonna adjust this synth a little more, the second one, because it's kind of like right in the middle. I think what I'll do is, let's do an auto pan on there. I'm not gonna get too fancy on this. Auto pan sync. And let's bring the rate down to like 1. Duh. All right, simple mistake. I put that auto pan sync on my master. I'm trying to figure out why everything was panning. So again, another tricky thing, you have to remember to go back to your program before you add effects. All right. So it looks like this one is full of effects as well, right? So let's go ahead and do that sub trick again. Bring that over to sub 2. All right, go to our channel mixer. Change that to submixes, sub 2, and let's go ahead and insert that auto pan. All right, cool. So yeah, that's that. Let's see what it sounds like all together. So that's that. Once again, it's not like the most exciting beat I've ever made. It's just kind of something that had a lot of issues that I felt like we could work on and cover a couple topics like, the submixes, as well as, using filters instead of EQs on the bass to kind of save yourself